"This is unacceptable, Emily," Margaret said, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against my display case. "A Palmer woman running a bakery?" She spat the last word like it was poison on her tongue. "What will people think?" I took a deep breath, counted to 3, and kept frosting the wedding cake in front of me. After 2 years of marriage to her son James, I learned that engaging with Margaret Palmer's criticism only made things worse. "Mom, please," James said from behind the counter where he was helping me prep for tomorrow's big order. "Emily's business is doing great. The bakery's gotten write-ups in 3 magazines this month alone." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Local magazines, dear. Hardly the kind of press the Palmer name should be associated with. My name is Emily Palmer, though sometimes I still feel strange using that surname. At 29, I built Sweet Dreams Bakery from nothing but determination and a handful of family recipes. My grandmother had taught me to bake when I was little, standing on a stool in her kitchen as she showed me how to make the perfect pie crust. Now her recipes were the foundation of my growing business. But to Margaret Palmer, no achievement could outweigh the fact that I came from common stock, as she loved to remind me. When James and I met at a charity event 4 years ago, him a successful corporate lawyer, me catering the dessert table, Margaret had done everything in her power to break us up. She even tried to bribe me to leave him, sliding a check across the table at our first private lunch together. I'd torn it up in front of her. Now, 2 years into our marriage, she'd shifted tactics. Instead of trying to get rid of me directly, she was determined to mold me into her idea of a proper Palmer wife. Someone who attended charity luncheons, joined the right clubs, and certainly didn't work with her hands. "The bakery cleared 6 figures last year," James said proudly, wrapping an arm around my waist. "Emily's built something special here." Margaret's lips pursed like she'd bitten into something sour. "Money isn't everything, James. There's a certain image to maintain. Your father and I have worked too hard building our family's reputation to have it tarnished by—" She gestured vaguely at the displays of cookies, cakes, and pastries. "This." I finished the last sugar flour on the wedding cake, carefully setting down my piping bag. "Margaret, I appreciate your concern. But this is my passion. I'm not giving it up." She stood straighter, all 5'9" of her radiating disapproval. "We'll see about that," she said quietly, almost to herself. Then she turned on her heel and walked out, the bell above the door chiming cheerfully in her wake. Something about her tone sent a chill down my spine. "Don't let her get to you," James said, kissing my temple. "She'll come around eventually." I wish I could share his optimism. But I'd seen the look in Margaret's eyes. She was planning something. I just didn't know how bad it would be. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks later. I arrived at the bakery early one morning to find an email from my biggest corporate client canceling their standing order. The message was vague about the reasons, but they'd been ordering from me for over a year without any complaints. Then another regular client canceled, and another. By the end of the week, I'd lost 5 major accounts. Each cancellation came with a different excuse, but something felt off. These were relationships I'd built carefully over years. Clients who had always been thrilled with my work. "It's probably just a coincidence," James said when I mentioned it that night. "Businesses change vendors all the time." But it didn't feel like a coincidence, and when my suppliers suddenly doubled their prices without explanation, I knew something was wrong. I started digging, making calls, asking questions. Most people dodged my inquiries, but finally, one of my former clients, a wedding planner I'd known for years, cracked. "I'm sorry, Emily," she said, her voice hushed like she was sharing a secret. "But Margaret Palmer came to our last society meeting. She made it clear that anyone who continued doing business with Sweet Dreams would find themselves unwelcome in certain social circles. You know how much influence she has." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Margaret wasn't just trying to pressure me anymore. She was actively trying to destroy my business. That night, I laid everything out for James. The lost clients, the supplier issues, what the wedding planner had told me. His face grew darker with each detail. "She's gone too far," he said finally, running a hand through his hair. "I'll talk to her, make her stop." But I shook my head. "No," I said, an idea forming. "I have a better plan." Margaret had resources, social connections, and old money backing her up. But I had something she didn't, proof of her interference. Carefully documented evidence of how she tried to sabotage my business. And I knew exactly how to use it. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to Lisa Chen, an investigative reporter who'd featured my bakery in one of those local magazines Margaret had sneered at. The second was to my lawyer. Then I waited. 3 days later, Lisa's article hit. Society matriarch Cauchy in small business sabotage CNDL. The headline read. The story detailed Margaret's campaign against Sweet Dreams Bakery, complete with quotes from multiple sources confirming her threats and manipulation. The reaction was immediate. Margaret's phone started ringing off the hook as other society wives scrambled to distance themselves. The charity boards she sat on suddenly had scheduling conflicts when she tried to attend meetings. But the real bomb dropped when my lawyer filed a civil suit against her for tortious interference with business relationships. The damages we were seeking would barely dent the Palmer fortune, but the public embarrassment? That was priceless. I was in the middle of preparing for the morning rush when Margaret burst into the bakery, her perfectly composed facade cracking at the edges. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Do you have any idea what this article is doing to our family's reputation?" I set down the tray of croissants I was arranging and met her gaze steadily. "Our family's reputation?" I repeated. "You mean the one you were so worried about me damaging? How's that working out for you?" She took a step forward, but I held up a hand to stop her. "You tried to destroy something I built from nothing," I continued, my voice calm but firm. "You thought you could bully and manipulate me into being the kind of woman you wanted me to be. But here's what you didn't understand, Margaret. I'm not ashamed of what I do. I'm proud of it. And now everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." "I was protecting our family name," she whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to her. "No," I said. "You were protecting your ego, and look where that got you." The bell above the door chimed as a customer walked in. I turned away from Margaret, greeting them with a warm smile. "Welcome to Sweet Dreams. What can I get for you today?" When I looked back, Margaret was gone. The weeks following the article's publication were a whirlwind. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, not with cancellations this time, but with new orders. People who'd never heard of Sweet Dreams Bakery before were suddenly desperate to try my pastries, drawn in by the drama but staying for the quality. I had to hire 3 new staff members just to keep up with demand. The lawsuit against Margaret was moving forward, but something unexpected happened during the discovery phase. As our lawyers dug deeper into her interference, they uncovered evidence that she hadn't just threatened my current clients. She actively prevented potential investors from approaching me about expansion opportunities. She intercepted at least 4 different business proposals, my lawyer explained during a meeting, including one from a major restaurant group interested in featuring your desserts in their upscale locations. The revelation hit me hard. I'd always dreamed of expanding Sweet Dreams, but I'd assumed I wasn't ready yet. To learn that opportunities had been there, only to be sabotaged by my mother-in-law, made my blood boil. James was furious when he found out. He'd been supportive throughout everything, but this pushed him over the edge. "She had no right," he said, pacing our kitchen one evening. "Those were your opportunities, your chances to grow. Who does she think she is?" I watched him, noting how the past few weeks had aged him. The strain between him and his mother was taking its toll, though he never wavered in supporting me. "What are you going to do?" I asked quietly. He stopped pacing and met my eyes. "I'm going to talk to Dad." Robert Palmer, James's father, had been notably absent from the drama so far. A quiet, business-minded man, he'd always stayed out of his wife's social machinations. But he was still the head of Palmer Industries, and his opinion carried weight. The meeting was set for dinner at their mansion, the same dining room where Margaret had hosted countless society gatherings, where she first told me I wasn't good enough for her son. Now, sitting at that massive table, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Margaret hadn't said a word since we arrived, pushing food around her plate while Robert listened to James detail everything she'd done. When James finished, Robert set down his fork and looked at his wife of 30 years. "Is this true, Margaret?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. She lifted her chin defiantly. "I was protecting our family's interests by sabotaging our daughter-in-law's business, by hiding investment opportunities from her." Robert's tone sharpened. "That's not protecting our family. That's letting your pride destroy it." "She's beneath us," Margaret snapped, her composure finally cracking. running that common little shop, serving anyone who walks in off the street. It's embarrassing." Robert's chair scraped back as he stood. "No, Margaret. What's embarrassing is your behavior. Emily has built something remarkable with her own two hands. She's shown more business acumen and integrity than you've displayed in this entire situation." He turned to me, his expression softening slightly. "Emily, I owe you an apology. I should have stepped in sooner, should have seen what was happening. But I'd like to make it right." From his briefcase, he pulled out a folder. "This is a proposal from Palmer Industries. We'd like to invest in Sweet Dreams Bakery, properly through official channels. We'll provide capital for expansion, but you'll retain full creative and operational control. It's your business, your vision. We just want to help it grow." Margaret's face went pale. "Robert, you can't be serious." "I am," he cut her off. "And there's more. Margaret, you're stepping down from all your charity board positions, effective immediately. Your social campaign against Emily ends now, or there will be consequences." "Consequences?" she whispered. "Financial ones," Robert said firmly. "Don't test me on this." I looked at the proposal in front of me, then at James, who nodded encouragingly. This was more than just an investment offer. It was a reshaping of power dynamics, a clear message about where the family's priorities lay. "I'll need time to review this with my lawyer," I said carefully. Robert nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need." As we drove home that night, James reached over and squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I thought about everything that had happened, the sabotage, the exposure, and now this unexpected turn of events. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think I am." The next few months transformed Sweet Dreams Bakery in ways I'd only dreamed about. With Palmer Industries' investment, I opened 2 new locations, each maintaining a warm, personal touch that had made the original shop special. My grandmother's recipes were still at the heart of everything we did, but now more people could enjoy them. Margaret, true to Robert's demands, retreated from her social circles. The lawsuit was settled out of court, with a substantial donation made in her name to a fund supporting small business owners. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 1 year after the article that had exposed everything, I stood in my original bakery, watching the morning light stream through the windows. The display cases were filled with fresh pastries, the air rich with the smell of baking bread. The bell above the door chimed. It was Margaret. She looked different, smaller somehow, without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. She approached the counter hesitantly. "Emily," she said, her voice quiet. I'd like to order a cake. For my granddaughter's first birthday next month." I studied her for a moment. This wasn't a peace offering, not exactly. But it was something. An acknowledgement, maybe, that some things were more important than social status. "Of course," I said, pulling out my order book. "Tell me what you had in mind." As we discussed designs and flavors, I realized something. I'd won more than just a business battle. I'd shown Margaret and myself that success doesn't come from a family name or social connections. It comes from passion, integrity, and the courage to stand up for what you've built. Sweet Dreams Bakery wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. And the best part? I'd done it my way, on my terms. The bell chimed again as Margaret left, order slip in hand. I watched her go, then turned back to my work. There were cakes to bake, dreams to build, and a legacy of my own to create. And no one could take that away from me.